area that I was in
Where are
because
you?
I'm in Carshalton near Croydon, Sutton,
Oh, okay.
and I thought you were just kind
Um,
of round the
Sam,
M25, round there. But
Sam grew up in Kingston, but no, we've always been in kind of Guildford, Godalming area.
all right, okay. And so what else, Emma? So what else is going on? How's life?
Yeah, life's really great. Well, I was just talking about we bought a place in Godalming a couple of
Mm,
years ago, so really enjoying living here. And music wise, same old thing really. Releasing albums, touring albums, releasing
yeah.
albums, touring albums. It's kind of lovely perpetual cycle. And I'm actually just in the middle of sort of promo um,
Yeah.
season. So I've got a an album coming out in April and a
Hmm.
tour to boot as well. So yeah, I
Okay.
set up on the 4th of April, which I'm
Yeah.
really looking forward to. Yeah, it's been a
And
long time coming actually.
where's it taking you?
Um, in the grand scheme of things, this tour is actually quite short.
Yeah.
I'm just doing 6 dates.
Okay.
A lot of my previous tours were sort of, 16 to 20 dates. And I just felt for this one, I wanted to target venues and places I know I do well in
Hmm.
and keep it kind of a little bit shorter.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to it because some of the places we're playing are really lovely. So yeah, it's mostly just England.
Okay.
So Bath, Southampton, London, Milton Keynes. Where else are we going? Sheffield, Cheshire.
Okay.
It should be good.
Good. Good. I do keep seeing like posters and adverts for it. So the whatever you're spending on advertising is working because it's coming through.
Do you know what? I think I'm spending. Shall I be very honest and just
Be honest.
say
Yeah.
this? So I thought I'd just try a little bit of Facebook advertising. I'm spending $2 a day
Mm.
for 30 days,
Right.
and that's all the advertising I've done for this store.
Okay.
The rest I'm just trying to continuously find new ways of promoting the fact that I'm going on tour, doing
Mm.
different reels and Instagram and all of this stuff. So
Okay.
yeah,
All
it's
right.
good that it's reaching you though.
Yeah, that's good. Can I ask you just to? You were leaning in quite far. Could you
Oh,
just stay back a bit? That's it. That's fine.
we don't need a close up of my face this time.
Yeah. It's only because I chop these up into Instagram reels, and the frame that I've got is the frame that people see.
Okay, yeah, definitely don't use my
So,
close ups.
so that no, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. And so, when you're recording and writing, is there kind of a process that you have? Is it just stuff that just drops into your head and you're able to pick it up, or are you more methodical, more mathematical?
It's tricky because every song is kind of different.
Mm,
Quite often I'll come up with a concept for a song and
yeah.
then the lyrics, but then sometimes a melody, I'll just sort of be
Mhm.
playing around with the guitar and a melody will come into my head. And then the words will form from the way sort of the melody. So it's
Yeah.
very different from song to song. But I do generally like to. I'm not the sort of artist that will write 100 songs in a year and choose my
Yeah.
favorite 10 and make that an album. I'm much more sort of spontaneous than that, and I'll kind of, if I feel like a song's going well, I'll spend a long time
Mm,
really making it great, and then that will definitely go on the album because I spend the time on it and I've invested in it and I like the song. So
if it's not going well,
it's interesting you say that because about 10 years ago, I wrote a always really like the concept, someone there to catch a fall and
yeah,
just and it just never fit, that sort of the pressure of it's got to be commercial, it's got to be a big bang,
yeah,
everyone's got to think of it as a pop track, and actually that song until a few months ago, Bloom, and I thought when the bough breaks, there's a really nice synergy with obviously Bloom and bough of a tree that it just all it felt right to put it
yeah.
on this album and I just let that one be what it was and
Mm,
it turns out it's actually my favorite song on the album.
okay.
It's not trying to be brand new pop, it is what it is and
Mm,
it's a nice little sort of folk song.
okay.
So
Are you kind of averse to kind of knowing? or letting things go and thinking, you know what, I've been working on this for a while, I'm just going to let it go, it's not working, like knowing when to quit on something?
I certainly find that I run out of steam occasionally on if I'm really stuck. But more often than not, I'm collaborating a lot with people, so I'm co-writing with people, and that's one of the things that makes that process easier, because if you've come to a bit of a situation where you're not sure and you don't feel as though it's going well, your collaborator might have an idea or spark an idea in you, and then you can turn it around. So I hate to give up.
Right, okay.
There might be some songs that are unfinished, but I know which songs are unfinished, and if I feel like I never say never, I might come back to them in years to come. Who knows?
Yeah,
So.
okay. And so I'm going to ask, how many instruments do you play? Because I see every stage photo you're holding a different instrument. So what do you play?
So my main instruments that I sort of play competently are guitar, bass, and ukulele. Those are my three core instruments. I grew up playing cello and piano and reached, grade 8 on cello and about grade 6 on piano, but that was when I was a lot younger. Yeah. And I sort of can play piano to a decent level, but not in a level where I'd feel confident stepping into a gig on piano. Right, okay. If that makes sense. So I use it as a writing tool mostly. The cello I did record on my first album, but I came across an amazing cellist called Ben Trigg, who I wouldn't ever choose myself over Ben playing on my album now. So
okay.
Yeah, and then when I went through my very kind of, I used to love listening to the Dixie Chicks as well when I was younger. So I've always quite liked country music, and some of my albums have reflected that, especially my third album, which I did a lot of in Nashville. I got very much into kind of playing the banjo and the mandolin around that era as well. So I never fully invested time in really cracking both of those instruments. Inspiring, so I can just about make my way around them.
I know. Do you find that when you play other instruments, or either the way that you write or the way that you play, or even the way that the sound that comes out of the instrument just changes completely?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question, actually. And when I embarked on my Enchanted tour way back in sort of 10 years ago, there was a song that I'd got into a recording studio, and there was a dulcimer in there, and I had never seen a dulcimer before, but I'm sort of obsessed with stringed instruments. So I said to the chap, would you mind if I had a little go? And he was kind enough to let me. I think Joni Mitchell made the dulcimer famous in the 70s or something. And a totally, totally different song that I would have ever written came out of that, just because I think there was a drone, and I didn't know how to play it very well, but it inspired a kind of melody that I wouldn't necessarily have maybe gone to had I done the same thing on guitar.
Yeah, no, I think I love the way that, I mean, I can't play piano for shit. But when I started using it as just a teaching tool, because it was just easier for me to keep picking up the guitar to teach kids how to play the guitar. But I'll just play like a G chord for you, and you just start playing these. Because I know a lot of theory, I'd say, right, it's just G, B, and a D. So where's a G? There's a bit of okay, all right. I can put something in the left hand as well, just by moving just even bass notes within the chord. So you're having inversions. It just sounds completely different on piano than it does on guitar. So when I play it on guitar, when I look at inversions, if I'm doing a show or a gig and I look at an inversion, 9 times out of 10, I just ignore the bass note. I think if it's a G over B, I'll just play a G. But on piano, it just sounds completely different. I'm like, holy and it's just all of a sudden it does, this little door opens up, and you're like, okay, can we forget the list? Just go away. I'm just going to do something. And I used to work in a music shop, and I'd pick up a mandolin, and I have no idea even what it's tuned to. And I'll just sit there and just start noodling around on it, and you just pick up little bits, and little doors open, little pathways, and little musical ideas, and it just takes you on a completely different journey.
It's a really good idea to do if you're feeling a bit stuck as well, and you kind of um, and just as you say, just kind of being able to come up with parts. So I've always really enjoyed the arranging side of production and coming up with different guitar parts and different just different parts in general to create the production. And going to an instrument that I'm pretty terrible at is actually kind of cool, because it forces you to think melodically, I think, as well, and come up with melodies that work within the song. So yeah, no, I'm definitely all for it.
Yes, and I think that naivety just brings out that natural musician inside of you, of me, or of anyone. Just
definitely
what sounds good, and we're just solely focused on, does this sound good and do I like it? Whereas I think definitely from a guitar point of view, when we're looking at improvising, guitar players they just have this little box, this little scale box that they've learned, and I'm not venturing from that. I'm not listening to it. I'm not listening to the harmony. I'm just focused on the shape, and it just doesn't ever sound musical.
I know exactly what you mean, and sometimes you get into a bit of a rut, and you think more about shapes, as you say, and sort of the scales and licks that you've learned, rather than one thing I love about John Mayer as a guitar player is he's just so melodic. Like you can just sing his solos. So it's just really clever. I think it helps probably that he's great at coming up with melodies, and he's a songwriter, and but definitely breaks away from that whole, this is a shape.
These are the notes. It's almost like the scale tells you what to play. This is the note that comes next. And it's very difficult to break out of it. So I think also using different tunings as well. Just tune your guitar to something really obscure, so you have to force yourself to play melodically and use your ear.
Yeah, and it's funny though, because I've had moments where my husband Sam, he's just a fantastic bass player, and will come up with monster fills on gigs, but it's always really clever and melodic. And I'll always say to him, oh, can you teach me that? Oh, can you tell me how to play that? And I know that deep down, he's got a massive bank of fills and a collection of, he knows where everything is, and whereas I don't really have that knowledge, and so I'm there thinking I'm hearing a melody, and trying to figure out where to play it, and I think it does help to have that knowledge of knowing, well, the melody that I'm hearing, that's the note. It's all really good ear training stuff as well, isn't it?
I think ear training is one of those things that's really, it's not spoken about enough, and it's certainly not taught about enough. And I think certainly with generations of children and people learning through YouTube or using the internet and downloading sheet music and tabs, there's very little emphasis put on, just have a listen to this. Do you like the sound of it? And see if you can work it out by ear.
Yeah.
And
totally. That's how I go on.
You go.
I was going to say, that's how I've relied on being able to play things when I was younger, was always hearing things and then playing them. I struggled much more with the theory side and the sight reading side. And if I wanted to play a piece, it would be really a case of asking my teachers to play it for me a few times, and then trying to,
But I think both are definitely valid. I mean, I think learning to sight read and learning theory is definitely valid. I don't think any one is more important than the other.
Yeah.
But I think they both need the same sort of attention.
Yeah.
And that's what's missing. I think certainly YouTube, it gives so much. You can have everything mapped out. You can have the whole structure. You can watch videos that have the sheet music going along as the video plays. So you've got it all laid out for you.
It's kind of scary, isn't it?
What it takes away is the listening. And I think that's such a huge chunk of playing music.
I completely agree. And it's kind of like that with everything now. I mean, it's a great tool to have to go and learn how to do something quickly. But it takes away the discovery element a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yes. And so you mentioned, when you were doing piano lessons, you had teachers, and you said grades, and you mentioned grades. How did you find grades, doing grades on piano and cello?
it was the obvious route for me at that age. You know, I was 7 when I started both cello and piano. It felt very academic parts to it, which I really enjoyed. I love learning the pieces. Obviously, it's really important to learn your scales if you're going to become a session cellist, pianist, or play in orchestras. But I sort of, that wasn't really where my direction was, where I was heading. I think I struggled with the academic side, and so when we did my grade 8 piece, my cello teacher could kind of tell that, and we were going down the Royal Academy board for a long time, and then we switched over and we did. I can't remember the examination board now, but they allowed for creative freedom, so you could actually create your own piece and play it, which is great, you know. So I really enjoyed. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed going to my lessons. Yeah, there were definite bits that I
don't sit on a fence. Don't sit on a fence.
Yeah, I definitely preferred the more playing side of things rather than just, you know, scales and having to practice scales and, you know, that kind of thing. Sight reading.
And so, what does, I mean, as we'll call you a multi-instrumentalist because you are, and a vocalist. So, what does your practice look like?
So the one instrument that I do spend a lot of time, I say a lot of time, not so much in the recent weeks because I've been preparing for the tour, but is the bass. I think being very inspired by Sam, and I play bass for a friend of mine in a band for a friend of mine, and that keeps me on my toes very much. And I think it was actually a perfect instrument for me because of the cello background and because I play guitar. So the bass, I'd say, is it's a case of kind of working out songs. When I get very stuck, I ask Sam. But it's a case of kind of working out songs, practicing scales, just trying to keep fresh. I don't practice any other instruments at the moment. I go through phases. I go through phases of trying to learn a piano piece, and but I've been much more focused on writing the album, producing the album with Sam, and getting that finished. Really, I have to look at my priorities and what needs to happen. And I know I'm never going to be a better guitarist than other Sam Whiting, who plays guitar for me. So there's no at this point in my life. I sort of know that being a singer-songwriter is where I'm at. I can play a bit of guitar, but I'm not going to be as proficient as Sam, who it is his life guitar. Yeah. So I'm not aiming to try and become a great guitarist. I just think it's finding a way of making it work for my songs, I suppose.
Yeah, of course.
And then bringing in musicians that have spent their whole lives practicing, you know, and getting them involved in what I do.
Do you ever practice songwriting? It just comes to you. So I mean, I don't write a huge amount. I would imagine the idea of practicing songwriting would be working out other people's songs that you like the sound of and trying to figure out what's going on harmonically and borrowing or stealing.
Yeah, that's true. I suppose the most inspired I ever am when it comes to writing a song is after a gig. So you know, going to watch. Going
to watch a gig, not playing a gig.
No, watching a gig. So going to actually see some of my my idols perform, and then kind of I'll always come back and want to pick up a guitar and write a song. I don't necessarily really practice it, but I certainly listen very intently to songs when I'm listening to music, and I'll kind of work out what, you know, hear what they're doing and think, oh, that's a really beautiful melody, or I love the way that flows. I like that chord sequence. So.
Yeah, sometimes all it is you hear a chord and go, "Ooh, what was that?"
Yeah,
I've got to figure that out. Where did they put it? How can I use it? And so, what about getting better? What's your take on on getting better, and what does it mean to you? How's it
Yeah, I
changed?
think
How's it changed as well over the last 10 years?
it has changed. I think I went through a phase of being very hard on myself, um, and constantly feeling, I'd walk off stage sometimes and I'd have done the meet and greet. Everyone had come up to me and said, "That was great. We really enjoyed it. We were really moved by this song." All positive feedback. But I would leave the show feeling really unhappy because I felt as though I didn't do a good job. I was very self-critical. My vocals weren't perfect, and this, it was mostly always about my singing, or because I've never been a natural. It's never been a gift of, to be able to sing. And so I went through a phase of just brutal, like tearing apart my performances, going to vocal coaches, trying desperately to improve, to the point where it was really stressful and I felt really unhappy. And I felt as though it was actually making me not enjoy what I was doing, from a live perspective. Studio is a bit different because you've got lots of chances,
Yes,
but from a live perspective. And it felt as though the only way I could get through that was to just let go, and not make it. I guess I sort of felt it was very egotistical of me to be so hard on myself. And so when actually, as a songwriter and a performer, it's not necessarily about how many runs I can do or how technically proficient I am in my genre. It's about how it affects the audience member and how they feel after the show and were they touched or did they enjoy themselves. So I realised it was quite egotistical of myself to come out of that feeling annoyed. Because I don't think people expect perfection when they come to see a live show. I talk about in my field because it's a singer-songwriter thing, whereas I think when you go and see some jazz, maybe, or, classical concert, you kind of sort of do to a certain extent. So, I just had to let go a little bit and chill out and not be so hard on myself. And I think I have a tendency of being quite... with the bass, for example, I'd go off and I'd practice and, Sam will be saying, "You've been doing this for 5 hours straight. You need to take a break." I get into maniac mode, he calls it. And it's, again, and I don't think that's really that healthy, but I get so fixated. And I think it works for some people, but I find it quite tiring. So I tell myself, you need to chill out a little bit. And so if I feel as though I'm not practicing, I think that's okay for me, because I'll always come back to it. And there are days where I will pick up the bass and feel inspired to do some practice, or the guitar and do a bit of practice. But I try not to make it like a routine thing anymore because it just felt a bit
forced. A bit
not
forced?
really not healthy, exhausting actually.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's always. I think it's paramount that you always have to kind of take into account how you're feeling and your mental health and things like that. And I think the idea, if you're forcing yourself to do something and it's causing you to either dislike it or feel unhappy, then clearly you're doing the wrong thing. It has to. I mean, it has to come from a place that I want to sit down and do this because I'm seeing gains and I'm really enjoying it, and or I'm just happy to be. I spent years trying to learn how to play jazz, and Sam will tell you, we used to do gigs and he'd show me these things, he'd tell me these things, like, here's this, try this, and I'd go away and try it. It just sounds awful. And I came to this realization that I didn't listen to jazz. And so therefore I didn't like listening to it, and therefore I couldn't play it.
That is such a valid point, and so true as well. I remember when I was at that music college, and I went there learning guitar because I wanted to get better and have a better tool to write music with. And we had parts on. I think it was very geared up towards becoming a session guitarist. So obviously
Yeah.
there was a syllabus about metal, shredding. And don't get me wrong, I love metal music, but I knew I was never going to be a shredder. And then we did a bit of jazz, and things have changed a bit now, and I do like listening to jazz now, but I'm sort of over the fact that I'm never going to be able to play it. But then I was thinking, all my peers, everyone's really getting into this, and why do I not really want to do it? And why am I struggling to get down and practice this? And at that time, I didn't realize it was because I wasn't emotionally connected to it or moved by it.
Yeah.
So it's so true. I think many people probably have a similar experience.
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about listening, but it has to be, that's the first step in learning. If do you listen to it, do you like it, then it's going to be relatively easy to then replicate it, because you're already used to those sounds. I started listening again, like I put on that Joe Pass and Ella Fitzgerald album. I've spoken about this a lot, and I just listened to the whole album start to finish. It's just magical.
Yeah.
But that's the start of learning. Once you start to listen, you start to hear the sounds. You go, I really enjoy hearing X. Therefore, I'll eventually be able to replicate it, because half of it's in my head anyway.
Yeah, that's so true.
I think there's so much going on the internet. You see these trends that happen on TikTok and on Instagram of certain guitar or certain musical trends, and then people just assume that they've got to learn it because everybody else is doing it.
Totally.
And you start focusing on this, then the trend switches, then you got to focus on that, and you end up learning nothing and just wasting 6 months.
Wasting your time,
Whereas all those trends, they started to trend because of people who are genuine and they were interested in that particular genre, whatever it may be. And it just came to the forefront for a little bit, and then it'll take another step back. And I think you have to find the music, like you said, that speaks to you, that touches you, and you just follow that, and that'll lead you to wherever it is you're supposed to be.
Really, really, really wise words, and I think it's about being authentic and genuine, isn't it? And you will always be late to the trend if it's not something that you're naturally sort of into. Absolutely.
And people see it as well. People will see through you if you're not genuine, you're not authentic. You spoke about being critical of yourself about not being perfect on a show, and I think you also touched that people don't really want to go and see perfection. They want to see that human element, because if they want perfection, you just put the record on.
The record, that's so true.
That's the cost of the ticket, is to see those little embellishes, those imperfections, maybe a fuck up, because that shows, from the audience perspective, it shows that the people you're seeing are human.
Yeah, absolutely. And prime example, I had my my pre-tour live warm-up show last Thursday, and we had a little technical glitch. I run backing tracks, and the drummer had, bless him, he forgot the little plug-in thing had come loose. So the track was playing out our click and our count-in and everything.
We've all been there. We've all been there.
Out of the main speakers, and we were trying to figure out what it was. So we said, I'll switch cables around. No, it doesn't work. All right, look, let's park that for now. Let's do the song without track. And it went really well. I got a friend of mine up from the crowd who knew the song, and we played it together. And actually, the thing that people talked about most in the meet and greet was, oh, I loved it when you did that song without track. It was brilliant. And you think, maybe you're absolutely right in that people pay that ticket because they do really just want to see the authenticity and the little things that might go wrong.
That's the point of a show. That's I've done shows like that. It's a similar thing with the drummers. I think he was using an SPD pad. The tracks programmed into it and just wouldn't turn on. So we had to do the whole gig without it. Fortunately, we had a whole band. So there was bass, there was keys, I was on guitar, and then the drummer and singer. But there was just so much on track. There's lots of strings, there was lots of backing vocals.
And you missed that as well when you kind of, you're playing. Where the backing vocals gone?
Yeah, but then when you do it without it, you actually just get to play as a band. You get to move a little bit,
Yeah,
whereas
yeah.
you're not restrained to that
You know,
fucking
you
click.
know what? And that's exactly what we did. I said, guys, we don't have track for this song. Why doesn't everyone take a solo? So we did, and
Yeah,
we got
yeah.
bass solo, guitar solo, drum solo. It was really fun.
And
So
I
yeah,
think, like, I just think that is the point of a gig, because you have the freedom to like if somebody breaks a string and you're not on track, it's like, just keep looping that intro. Just go and change
yeah,
your guitar or change a string, or
yeah,
something's happened. Okay, we'll just keep looping that intro around until. I
yeah,
mean, that's
yeah,
happened so many times. But if you're on
yeah.
track, it's like, nope, gotta keep going.
We've got to go. Yeah, we've got to go.
Or you pause it, and then all the track disappears, and everyone goes, "What was that?"
Yeah, yeah. Oh God, it could be a bit of a nightmare playing to track
Yeah,
sometimes. So usually it would be a 4-piece, and
yeah,
so for me to be able to give the show that I kind of want to give, I sort of need track for this
yeah. I mean, I
particular
think
show.
it definitely has its place, and I think it's saved so many musicians.
But it's one of those things where suddenly I've got an intro and I know it's a 4-bar intro, and then I sometimes I have these like sort of heart drops to stomach moments where I think, what's the first lyric?
Yeah.
And before playing to track, I would just look at the band, I would play through the intro.
What's the first line?
Yeah.
What's the first one? Yeah. Or ask the audience, what's the first line? Do you know?
You help me here.
But again, I've done shows like this where I've started a song, I mean, it's just cover gigs, and I've
Yeah.
started an intro, and I was like, what's the first fucking lyric?
Yeah.
I've just said it over the mic. So what's the first lyric? I've forgotten it, and someone's gone, oh, got it,
Yeah.
thank you, and you're off. Yeah, tricky to do with tracks, but
Very, very.
but yeah, they definitely have their place, and like I said, they've saved so many gigs when people
Yeah.
have pulled out last minute. It's like, all right, well, we're gonna have to put bass on track, and we'll do it without them.
Wow.
So yeah, not ideal, but
Wow. Yeah.
I can't think of anything else that I was going to say. Oh, music college.
Yeah.
Where did you go to the ACM?
I was at ACM, yeah. I
What
did.
years were you there?
Oh my gosh. I'm trying to work this out. I think I finished.
No. Let's not ask that question, because then it reminds us of how far
How
away.
old I am, I know.
So you were. What course did you do? Actually, you know what? The fucking ACM. I think I must speak about this college every single podcast that I do. Either everyone teaches there, they went there, or they're going there.
Yeah, oh God.
I should be on some kind of retainer from them. So you went there, you studied guitar.
I did. I was there on diploma and high diploma guitar. I was one of only 2 girls that were on guitar at that time.
Yeah.
So I was. Basically, that's why I came out of there. Most of my friends from ACM are all chaps, which I love.
Yeah.
But it was. I actually had great experience with ACM. Yeah. For what I wanted to get out of it, it was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I finished, I was lucky enough to have 2 kind of quite big opportunities. One was doing session guitar work for a band who took me around Europe playing arenas, which was nice.
Who was that?
And they were a band called Finn. We did some support for the Coops and Incubus.
Okay. Wicked.
A band called Mona, who were quite kind of big at the time.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. And then I got my first sort of mini publishing break where I was writing a bit for sort of a Britain's Got Talent finalist. So it was great. And I think the connections that I made, I still, obviously Sammy was in my guitar class, and he still plays for me now. I made some really good friends.
Awesome. Who was your favourite teacher whilst you were there?
Oh my goodness. I was taught by some really great teachers. Dave Kilminster was one of them, who now plays for Roger Waters.
Yeah, he was there when I was there.
Yeah. My favourite teacher was John Bishop.
Okay.
I don't know if you.
No, he wasn't there. I've heard of him, but yeah, he wasn't there when I was there.
He was the one teacher I felt that really, because everyone else there was learning how to noodle, and I didn't gravitate towards that. It was more about chords and coming up with this and that and the writing side.
Yeah.
And he was probably the only teacher that spotted that and
Hmm.
really built up my confidence.
Yeah.
I remember one live performance workshop that we did, and because Sammy was such a great soloist, I would always get him to kind of do the solo,
Yeah.
and I was always honestly, I was too nervous to do it because I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it as well as him,
Yeah.
and why not, for the sake of the band, him just do it. In
Hmm.
hindsight, that's not really learning, and I should have just
Yeah.
done it, but I was just very anxious then, especially playing in front of mostly all guys, and
Hmm.
at that time, I mean, I like would walk onto the stage and they would like wolf whistle. It was like, it
Really?
was just bordering on not feeling comfortable.
Yeah.
um, but John Bishop said in front of everyone, he said, I soloed Emma's guitar in my ear mix, and you know, she was unbelievably on it. Like, we need to give her a big round of applause for that. And actually, it just really lifted my spirits and made me feel
Mm.
confident in my
Yeah.
abilities. And then he also brought in a load of country music instruments to a session, to a
Yeah. Yeah.
class one time, and I loved country music, so I got to actually try mandolin for the first time and banjo for the first time, and that's when it kind of all sort of sparked a
Started to,
massive
yeah.
interest.
That's so cool. I mean, I love those kind of moments, and I think as a teacher, you never know what you do is going to have a lasting impact. So I think it's really cool that first of all, like he spotted the things that you were sort of leaning into,
Yeah,
and just supported it and brought
yeah,
in all those other instruments. And
yeah.
I mean, I just think that's the role of a really, really good teacher.
Such
It,
a good teacher. And
yeah.
he was always really, he never kind of had anything negative to say. And if he did feel as though there was room for improvement in certain aspects, the way he worded it was never,
Mm.
oh, well, you're doing this wrong, or I'm going to make you very embarrassed in front of all your peers. It was always done with great spirit. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
What's your take on first let's actually go back a little. How was it going through all the metal shreddy Steve Vai sections as let's say a folk guitarist?
Yeah,
I mean,
wild.
did you dive into it and
Yeah, no, I did really give it my best shot. I'm amazed that I managed to come out of those exams having sort of scraped a pass, actually. But um, interesting. I
yeah.
definitely sort of didn't ever come back to that
Yeah.
and go, oh, I really love this. I
Yeah.
this desperate need and desire to be
Yeah,
able
yeah,
to
yeah.
create it. But yeah, I really struggle with a lot of that side of things, I have to
Mm.
say. But again, having Sammy there, he was again quite similar to John Bishop in that he was just a great friend and didn't ever make me feel, inferior for not being able to
Yeah.
pick it up as quickly as other people did.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I just sort of
You
I
just got through it?
I got through it. I got through it, and
Okay.
and I enjoy listening to that sort of music. It's funny, but I think I just don't have that much of a desire to want to play it myself. So
Sure.
yeah.
We'll end on this. What is your view on making mistakes?
Do you know what? I I'm sort of torn here because my heart says mistakes are funny, and
Mm.
actually whenever I'm on stage and any of my bandmates make a mistake, which is quite rare, although I'll come back to this,
Mm.
it's funny. Like, I actually find it funny when I make a mistake. A lot of the time I'm a bit annoyed at myself,
Yeah.
but when someone else makes a mistake, I actually find it very funny. We
Do you think there's something that you need to that people need to embrace about mistakes, particularly when it comes
Definitely,
to learning?
yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, in a live scenario, mistakes are, they're going to happen.
Mm.
We're not robots, and
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right in that we should just, it's part of being human, isn't it? Really.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I find it quite funny.
Okay.
I think it's more sort of the reaction of, oh, whoops. We
Yeah.
did. I got my friend up to play a song with me. It was on backing track, and this was on Thursday. And Sam also thought they both thought it. We haven't played it in ages. They thought it was in one key, and the backing track starts with just this synth intro, and then I'm in, and it's just synth and kick.
Yeah.
And so I was singing it. Everything was going fine, and then suddenly the chorus hit, and it's literally they're pummeling, like a. Just one note. It's kind of like a sort of a dancey thing.
Yeah.
And they thought it was in. Sam said to Sam, "It's in E flat. It's in E flat." And it was a semitone out, and I was looking around. I was like playing around. Something's not right, but I'm going to try and hold melody.
Yeah.
Something's not right. I don't know what this is, and it was funny. And you know what? They both looked at each other. Everyone, we were laughing. The audience didn't know because. It was, the track was quite loud, and it probably just sounded a bit fruity, but
yeah.
But
a nice flat 9 interval. Oh,
wow, this is
that's it. Oh,
more jazz than I was expecting.
Yeah.
And I loved it, and I think things like that I'm much more relaxed about now. I just I'll look over and it just makes me smile. Because I think, wow, if these guys are making mistakes and they're top of their game, then I can't be hard on myself.
For the rest of us, yeah.
Well,
I know you said you got to go at 11, so
yeah. I have to wrap things up. I'm sorry.
We're happy. I'm happy to leave it there, man. Thank you so much for the time. It was really lovely to finally get to sit and have a chat with you.
It's so lovely to chat to you too. Thank you so much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
That's okay.
Oh well, I hope